So, welcome everybody to the session. I hope all of you can see and hear me clearly. This is a continuation of a discussion which we had, which finished at roughly 12 o'clock. So, uh, we took a break for half an hour and we will be discussing the second part of VARC slot 1 CAT 2020. In short, the remaining part of the remaining questions. So, we have already done up to question number 13, question number 1 to 13 we have already done. So let's look at the remaining questions, that is question number 14 to 26. And in fact, I would begin by asking you to share your scores with us. You can fill out the form in the description that will help us in analyzing the the percentile. It would help us in research to help us to understand the relation between the score and the percentile. That will help us in creating the percentile prediction, right? And we have 20 sessions which are planned for you in the next 2 days. So this would contain all the solutions of the 228 questions by CAT, and the discussion, the solution would be by experts. And there would also be a session to discuss the questions which should be challenged for all the slots, and all the sessions will be covered in the next 2 days, as I told you earlier. And there would be also an overall prediction of score and percentile also. The playlist of all the sessions is in the description. You can easily click and you can easily find it out. You can look at the scores, you can look at the playlist of all the sections, and this is a quick look at all the sessions which are lined up right today. So VARC slot 1, we started at 11 o'clock. This is the second part. So in the same way, you will have slot 2 discuss. It will start at 2 o'clock. There will be probably a small break in between, but the whole set of questions will be discussed. So would be the case with slot 3, right? So everybody is clear with this, I hope. Right now, this was the remaining, the last passage, the last as in the only passage left. I'll give you some time to read the 3 paragraphs. And by the way, if you scan, there are again 5 paragraphs, around 100 words each. Some paragraphs would be less than that. So average of around 500 words. So should take you, if you read it, should take you 1.5 minutes, around 1.5 minutes. We will take that time and then we will discuss the answers. Hope all of you are reading it. And by the way, for those who have read it and who are reading, let me quickly summarize whatever we're reading. It's about the basic rules of, one of the basic requirements of communication is, there should be some set of rules that all of us agree upon, right? There would be a basic skeleton kind of a foundation, without which it would be, if you do not have it, it would result in bad communication, it would result in confusion, misunderstanding. And he also says there are minimum requirements also, right? Minimum requirements like nouns and verbs. You will have to have a noun and a verb to make a sentence, right? It is almost like the mandatory requirement, right? He also says in the last paragraph that sometimes some people actually, play, or, let's say play with the rules, right? But then he says there is a condition. You should not play with the rules unless and until you are very certain of doing well, right? So it is ironical in the fact that you should not play until and unless you are sure of doing well, and you will do well if you follow the rules. So that is almost like saying that it is in very rare cases that you would be required, or you would be encouraged. Rather, you would not be encouraged to break the rules except in very rare conditions, right? Though some people do it, some people do not break the rules, some people actually play with it, right? Okay. Then, in fact, if you notice in the next paragraph which you read, you will understand. Let's give you half a minute to read it, and then a minute to read it, and then we will discuss it quickly. Right. So if you look at the fourth paragraph, what the fourth paragraph does is it tells you I mean, there are certain set of rules. That is what we discussed in the previous slide. There are some rules which we have to follow. There are some basic structure also, like a noun and a verb in a sentence. Right. Now, the author says there are some cases where people actually play with the rules. It can be pliable, but one should not play unless and until you are very sure of doing well, right? And he is explaining to you the conditions in which you can, what do you mean by, unless and until you are sure of doing well, right? And he also says that you cannot be sure of doing well if you do not have a basic grasp of the rules of grammar. So that means to actually deviate or to obviate the rules, you have to be sure about the rules yourself. But you cannot not know the rules yourself. That is what is the case, right? So the answer. So how? So he poses a question: how can you do well if you do not know? How do you know if you're not doing well? The answer is you cannot, which means even for avoiding the rules of grammar, you will have to be very well versed with it yourself, right? So it's almost like an ironical thing, a paradox rather, right? And the last paragraph, he tells you that, okay, in fact, he mentions here that, one who does not understand the rudiments of grammar, he tries to comfort himself in the simplicity, which means this is something which the author is almost like sarcastic about it, right? Then he gives you examples of this. He goes on to further explain his sarcasm, saying that, there is this rule: if you take a noun and a verb, you can have a sentence, but a noun and a verb is the requirement. Every noun and every verb, if you combine, every combination of a noun and a verb may not always give you a meaningful sentence. They can be perfect, but they will make little rational sense, right? He also says that sometimes it can be attractive, but then this is something which, so this is something which is almost like, it's like the paradox, right? Simplicity is there, but you cannot simply focus on the simplicity, right? You'll have to go beyond that to make the rhetoric meaningful, right? And again he says, there are too many simple sentences is something which is not advisable. And he also says that if you find that it is complex, right, well, just remind yourself that you will have to follow the rules. So grammar, so these words, Jane transmits, mountains float, and plums defy, these are all examples to prove the point that every combination of a noun and a verb does not always make a sentence. So you will have to, grammar is the pole you grab to get your thoughts up on their feet and walking. So you will have to depend on grammar. That is the overall message that the author wants to convey rather, right? Everybody has read it, I hope. Let's look at the question. All of the following statements can be inferred except. Pay attention to the word except here, meaning you'll have to look at what the passage, what is not inferred, which cannot be inferred, right? Not inferred does not mean necessarily wrong. Something of which you have no idea, something which is not relevant is also not inferred, right? Wrong is not always not inferred. Not inferred can mean something which is different or which is not there in the passage also, right? So sentences do not always have to be complete. Yes, he says there are cases where he says, this is the line where he says, right, must you write complete sentences each time, perish the thought, meaning you should not, you let go of this thought. So every time it is not necessary that you have complete sentences. So this is something which can be inferred. So this cannot be the answer. The subject predicate relationship is the same as the noun verb relation. Yes, it is. In fact, the subject will always have to be a noun. A predicate will have to begin with a noun. So this is something which is very clearly inferred. Grammar police is a metaphor for critics who focus on linguistic rules. Yes, in fact, what the word itself, grammar police, the police take you to task when you break laws. So grammar police will take you to task when you break laws. So they are people who focus on linguistic rules. So they are a stickler for grammatical rules. So 3 can be inferred. What is left is 4th. Now, the primary purpose of grammar is to ensure that sentences remain simple. No, the primary purpose of grammar is to ensure that there is no confusion, there is no miscommunication. It is almost like a set of rules that all of us agree for our own convenience. Right. So the best answer is 4. Everybody, I hope, understood. Let's look at the next. So Inferring from the passage, the author could be most supportive of which of the following practices, meaning what would be something that the author encourages according to the idea. So let's see, or something which is in line with what the author says. So this is again, if you notice the answer to this question, you may not find it exactly given in the passage. It's like an application question where you take the ideas given in the passage and you apply it in an outside area. For example, a campaign demanding that a writer's creative license should allow the breaking of grammatical rules. Should we allow the breaking of grammatical rules, or is it that yes, sometimes creative license allows you to bend the rules slightly, right? But it is not exactly breaking, and it is more of an exception than the rule. So this is something which we can eliminate. If you look at option 2, create a creative writing course that focuses on how to avoid the use of, if you avoid the use of rhetoric, you cannot have meaningful communication. Rhetoric, in fact, is given as a synonym in the passage of, correct and conventional use of language, right, in a persuasive manner, of course, right. Now, even 3, the critique of standardized rules of punctuation and capitalization. So if the rules are standardized, should we question them? He says we should follow them. If you do not follow them, it is definitely bound to lead to confusion, right? So if you notice, this is what he says here in this initial part of the passage, right? So communication composed of this part of speech must be organized by rules of grammar upon which we agree. When these rules break down, confusion, misunderstanding, and confusion and misunderstanding result. Bad grammar produces bad sentences. So this is the rule that the author wants you to follow. Does it mean that we should critique them? Well, not exactly. We do not know for sure. If you look at 4, the availability of a language software that will standardize the rules of grammar as an aid to writers. The key here is as an aid to writers. It will help writers to communicate very effectively by knowing the conventions which everybody agrees on. And this is, as I was telling you, indicated. So he indicates that we should all follow it. Otherwise, there would be bad sentences, and bad sentences would be not something which a writer would like to propagate. A writer would like to write in his creations, in his books, or in his writings, of course. So the best answer is 4. All clear, I hope. Yes. Next question. Right. Okay, so what are these examples? Take any noun, put it in any verb, it never fails. So none of the statements can be seen as similar, except, so you'll have to find out something which is similar, right? None of them are similar except, meaning you have to find what is similar. So what is, first let's understand the core of the idea, the core of these sentences. Take any noun, put it with any verb, and you have a sentence, right? It is the basic skeleton. It never fails. But then the author goes on to tell you, if you read the point, right? These are all perfect sentences. Make such thoughts, many such thoughts make little rational sense. Now, this means this is the minimum requirement. This is the necessary requirement. But it does not mean that every time you put together a noun and a verb, you will have a meaningful rational sentence. So look for something which is similar to this, right? If you look at 4, take any vegetable and put some spices, you have a dish. Now, you cannot have a dish without a vegetable and a spice. You need some spices and some vegetables at least, right? But then every vegetable, any combination of a vegetable and some spices will not always have a dish which is worth eating, right? Which is delectable, which is palatable rather, forget delectable, right? So this is very similar to this analogy. This is the answer. If you look at the other options, let's see how do we eliminate the other options. A collection of people with the same sports equipment is a sports team. Now, collection of people with the same sports equipment, it is not the necessary requirement of a sports team. So this is not an analogy. For a sports team, you require a minimum of people who can play or who play that sports team, who play that sports, right? Who play that game. So having same equipment does not make a team, so it is not even the mandatory requirement, right? Look at 3. A group of nouns arranged in a row. No, it's not just a noun. You require a noun and a verb to make a sentence, so does not meet the mandatory requirement of a sentence. Now, even 4, an apple tree planted in a field and you have an orchard. An orchard would be at least, an orchard is not just one tree. It should be, an orchard is almost like a garden. In a garden you grow flowers, but in an orchard you grow fruits. So one apple will not make an orchard. For an orchard you need to have at least some fruits, some variety at least, right? So best answer is 1. Everybody is clear with this, I hope. Yes, hope so. Right. Now, next question. Which of the following, if false, could be seen as supporting the arguments in the passage? This is a very misleading question. Misleading, not misleading as such, right? But it is meant to mislead you. It is meant to confuse you. Because if you do not read this if false, you will always pick the wrong answer. So what does the question in its essence mean? This question in its essence means that you have to look at something which does not support the passage. Something which does not support the passage. So something if false would support, meaning falsify it and it would support the passage, which means the negation of that would support, which means that statement itself should not support. Something like that. So let's see. An understanding of grammar helps a writer decide if she is writing well or not. This is in fact a requirement, right? So this is something which is one of the arguments that the author makes. Look at this line. If you notice, he says, right here in this line, if you notice, one who does not grasp the rudiments of grammar, right? So he finds a comforting simplicity at its heart. One more thing, if you do not have a rudimentary grasp of how the parts of speech translate into coherent sentences, how can you be certain that you're doing well? How will you know if you are ill, for that matter, right? So if you notice, the best answer, the answer, one cannot be the answer, right? Understanding of grammar, definitely it helps a writer understand whether she's writing well or not. So this is something which supports the passage. We are looking for something which does not support, right? Now if you look at 2, regarding grammar, women writers tend to be more attentive to method and accuracy. Now, is there a difference between women and men writers as given in the passage? No. So this is a passage which is this line is irrelevant. So whether you falsify it or whether you retain it in its originality, does it support or negate the statement? No, it does not. Right. So it neither supports nor goes against the passage, even when you falsify it or even when you retain its essence. So this is also not the answer. I hope all of you are clear, right? So to support or to not support, you require the statement to be connected at least. Option 2 is something which is not even relevant. So something which is not relevant will neither support, will neither go against the passage. So this also can be eliminated. I hope you understand the logic. What about 3? It has been observed that writers sometimes disregard the rules of rhetoric. Yes, it has been observed. Some writers do that. If you notice, he says, right. So if you look at this, right, so it's an old observation that the best writers sometimes disregard the rules of rhetoric. So it's an observation. So that means it is observed that some writers do definitely disregard the rules of rhetoric. Well and good. I hope everybody is clear. So this is something, if you falsify it, it would not support, because this itself supports the passage. It is one of the arguments made by the author. So 3 is not the answer. Look at 4. Perish the thought that complete sentences necessarily need nouns and verbs. So for a sentence to be complete, if you do not have a noun and a verb, right, this means you do not require a noun and a verb to complete, you require a noun. If you do not, so perish the thought that complete sentences necessarily need nouns and verbs. So nouns, this means nouns and verbs are not required. So if you falsify it, right, nouns and verbs are required, which means it supports it. So falsification supports. So in short, this sentence in its essence does not support the passage, which is what we are looking for. Hope all of you got the point. So the best answer is 4. Everybody got it, I hope? Yes. Next question. Which of the following best captures the main concern of the passage? Right. What's the main concern of the passage? You will understand it is given. Mostly it would be there in the beginning and in the ending. So that is what the passage does. Also, he speaks about the importance or the essence, the very, the requirement of grammar. What purpose does it serve? This is what he says here, right? Then he says, of course, there are skeleton rules. Sometimes people, experts sometimes go around the rules a little bit, but that is very easy. That is easier said than done, because to do that you need to be first very clear about the rules yourself. You cannot do that. You cannot simplify it, right? So he even ends by saying that grammar is the pole you grab to get your thoughts up on the feet and walking. So grammar is necessary for you to become a good writer, for you to even express your thoughts, right? So the whole passage is about the importance of grammar in the field of communication, whether you want to write or whether we want to speak effectively and meaningfully, right? So now nouns and verbs are two indispensable parts of writing. This is the skeleton within grammar, which is not the main point. The main point is the importance of grammar. So one can eliminate that. The telling clause here is unless he is certain of doing well. This is the exception, right? And what would be what would help? I mean, in which cases can you make the exception, which is not the main concern, right? So we can eliminate that. Bad grammar produces bad sentences, or rather, you require grammar to make to make good sentences, meaningful sentences, which is the answer, right? Now, Strunk and White caution against too many sentences, but simple sentences provide a path, right? If you notice, this is only a line taken from the passage. It is not the main concern. The main concern, as I have pointed out some time ago, just a few seconds ago, is what is enshrined in the first paragraph and towards the ending, right? So that is what we need to conclude. Everybody is clear with this question, I hope. If it is clear, we will move on to the next one, right? The next question is what is called, type in the answers, parajumbles without the answer options, right? And if you notice, since there are no answer options, it will be without negative marking. But in any case, if you notice, the basic rules of Parajumble will definitely help you here. What are the basic rules of Parajumble? Right. Basic rules are you read the sentences first and try to connect the sentences using various connectors, using clues like pronouns, connectors, using sequences, chronology. All these you have already discussed in the classes. If not, well, it's something which is not new. To connect sentences, you need sentence connectors, you need pronouns, right? Pronouns will tell you, okay, the pronoun which is given here is connected to that, right? For example, when you say these concerns, what are these concerns? Where are these concerns stated? If you notice, these concerns are what is stated in 1 and 2, right? And by the way, the relation, you can also find a relation between the point. Since the 1930s, the security has seen both continuity and profound changes. There have been changes as well as continuity, right? So if you notice, sentence 1 and sentence 2 are examples of what is given in sentence 3. So 3, 1, 2, 4 is the answer. What does sentence 3 say? Let me repeat it again. Let me repeat it, not again. Repeat and again is superfluous. Since the 1990s, the security environment in Southeast Asia has maintained continuity and has also changed profoundly, right? So what is given in 1 and 2 are examples of this point, right? So tensions and sometimes conflict remain. Okay, and then the change is given in what happens in China, right? So it has become an increasingly pressing security concern, right? And when you say these concerns, it should definitely come after what is given in 2. So the best answer is 3, 1, 2, 4. I hope all of you got the point. The point here is very simple. There is a point mentioned in 3. It is explained or exemplified. Examples of this point are given in 1 and 2, right? And 4 continues with the concern that is stated in 2. So that way, the best answer is 3, 1, 2, 4. Hope everybody understood. Let's look at the next one, right? And be very careful. Here again, try to spot the relations, right? Now, if you look at this, using their supernatural potency, the first thing which you need to understand is which supernatural. I'll give you some time to read. It would be unfair of me to simply point out the clues, right? Read the entire sentences and connect. Okay, I hope all of you are reading it. We'll give you a minute to read it, because obviously without reading it, you cannot answer the questions. Right. Right, I hope everybody has read it. Let's see what are the connections initially. Right, as we know, in Parajumbles, it is not necessary to find the initial or the beginning sentence first. Not necessary. Sometimes you might, which is a good thing. If not, it does not mean you cannot answer the question. First, try to connect the sentences. What are the sentences? How do we connect them? Right, let's see. Now, if you notice, the first connection that I can spot is, in fact, you can spot another connection, but the first one which I spot is between 1 and 4. Now, relying on narrative structure alone, indigenous significance of folk tales are hard to determine. Right. So it's a problem. San folk tales, you cannot determine the significance by relying on narrative structure alone. Right. 4 says meaning can be elicited and the tales contextualized by probing beneath. It tells you the way out. 1 says that it is hard to determine relying on narrative structure alone. You have to probe beneath the narrative. So 1 and 4 very clearly connected. Right. Now the remaining connection is between 3 and 2. Right. In fact, if you notice, using their supernatural potency, benign means good. Good shamans, they use it to they use it to gain respect. Right. They transcend the social conflict and they reach a certain a state of respect. Right. What do they use to reach this level? They use these select tales that reveal select tales, some folk tales, right, which reveal that they deal with a certain conflict. So he uses the supernatural potency of these tales. Right. And by the way, if you notice, right, if in 3 and 2 you speak about, there are certain tales which serve a certain purpose and they are used by some people, and in 1 and 4 you speak about the concept you introduce. How do you analyze folk tales? So 1 and 4 will definitely come earlier. So the best answer is 1, 4, 3, 2. Hope everybody is clear. So 1 and 4 are connected, 3 and 2 are connected. Of these, 1 and 4 speaks about how do we interpret folk tales, and 3 and 2 tells you how certain folk tales are used by certain elements within their society. So that will of course come later on. So we go from the general to the specific. That is again a rule that everybody follows in Parajumble. Hope it is clear. This was the 20th question. The next question is summary. In summary, of course, you're given answer options, so you will be and you should be able to use the method of elimination. For this, you need to read the paragraph first, for which you will take 30 seconds to 45 seconds. The remaining, remaining 30 seconds, 40 seconds should be used to eliminate the answer options. Read the paragraph first. Right, so let's see. I hope all of you have read it. If you notice, let's do it by elimination. Right, option 4. Europe has consistently changed its internal structure to successfully adapt to the changing world order. Right, has it changed its internal structure? It has adapted perfectly fine. But then, does it specifically tell you what kind of change has it made? Not clear, so this is not enough. So on the same note, even 1, Europe has consistently changed in keeping with the changing world order, and that is now in keeping with the changing world order. The world order changing of it might influence certain changes in Europe, right? But what exactly did they do? Not again mentioned, right? So, but the paragraph, if you notice, towards the end it mentions that what did it do to to adapt to the changes. They established a common currency, a formal political structure. It proclaimed the Europe united, whole and free, adjusting its differences by peaceful mechanisms. This clearly explains the changes which Europe did in order to keep up with the changing world. Right. So 1 and 2 are incomplete. If you look at it, 3 is very complete. Europe has chosen to lower political and economic heterogeneity. Heterogeneity means differences, right? So adjusting its differences is what they have done. They have done to lower its differences by peaceful mechanisms, and they have done so in order to adapt itself to the emerging multipolar world order. And 3 is a more complete answer than 1 and 4, right? If you look at 2 focuses only on the example of Germany. The unification of Germany is an example of events which has actually made Europe adapt, right? So this is not the main point. Okay, emergence of a multipolar world order, right, is in fact a larger point. Okay, so that is what we have to be careful about. The better answer there is 3, right? So hope it is clear. Let's look at the next one. Now, finding out the odd the sentence. This again is something which there is no negative, there are no answer options. Of course, the answer options are relevant, are themselves in the form of the sentences itself. But what we need to be careful about here is the fact that many of us make the mistake of finding out the exact sequence. You need not find out the exact sequence of the remaining sentences. First, just point out which sentence is alien or foreign. You do not need to rearrange the remaining 3 to find the answer. Let's see. What's your answer? Let's see. Read it for a minute, then we will discuss. Okay, hope everybody has read it. If you notice, if you read a little bit between the lines, you will straight away find that the answer is 3. How? Right. In the remaining sentences, we speak about the use of speech, the use of communication within the slaves themselves to adjust to their to adjust or to change or to cope with their condition, which is very harsh, being ruled. They are in bondage. So the use of communication, talking to each other, using of words to cope with this particular bondage. This is what you find in 1. You find it even in 2. You find it even in 4, right? Slavery dependent on dialogue. Slaves could never be completely muted. They have to communicate within themselves, right? And this is what the slave owners, they have to be careful, because slave talk, right, they can never control it, and yet, and they know that slave talk, communication among slaves themselves, it would basically lead to some kind of a way to cope with the bondage, and sometimes it can lead to an uprising also, right, conspiracy also. So it's all connected. Now 3 tells you about where do the slaves come from. They come from societies where there is a lot of connection between the spirit and the people. This is something which is very alien. The word slaves is mentioned, but it is not about the use of communication within the slave society, within the slaves themselves, to deal, to cope, and to subvert their condition of bondage. So that is why 3 is the answer. 3 speaks about how they originally come from societies where, oaths, spoken words are carried out between, spoken communication is carried out between people and the spirit world, which is not the case, which is not what is given in the remaining 3 sentences. So best answer is 3. Hope everybody got the point. Let's look at the next question. Next question is again nothing else but, Parajumbles without options, of course. So read it for 1 minute, and after that we will discuss the answers. Right, discuss the answer. Answer is already given. What is important is how do you connect the sentences. Look for pronouns. Look for sentence connectors. What do I mean? What's the relevance of a pronoun? A pronoun will always replace something. Find that something and connect it to that pronoun. Look at sentence connectors. Sentence connectors tell you what is the relation between this sentence and the previous sentence. Right. So look for relation between a question and its answer. Look for the relation between a point and its example. In short, look for logical sequences. Right. So let's see. So Casablanca, good to see you here also. By the way, it is good to hear my own language. By the way, I I am yet to partake of my meal. So I have not yet taken my meal. Anyway, that's very good to. It's very good to hear one's own language here. Anyway, let's also look at the question. I hope you're not the only one. Right. What are the relations? What are the connections? Let's see. If you notice, right, the first connection that we can actually look at is the relation between 1 and 3. This is not the first connection you might find. You might find another connection, right? But yes, I'm pointing out the relation. So 1 is a very introductory, it's a general sentence. It tells you about how poison has been used for assassination, right? Now, the foundation offered new prospects. So this is what happened in the past. This is what is a development. So 1 and 3 are connected. So it offered new prospects for these weapons. It allowed, so it's like you can actually use poisoning, right? Biological, developments have used this, have led to the use of these poison to specifically target, allow agents to be chosen and designed on a rational basis. This presents a threat, and this threat is what is given in 2. So 1, 3, 2 is a very clear connection. What about the fourth one? Though treaties were all made in good faith, they contained no means of control and so failed to prevent interested parties, right? So if you notice, right, this is the sentence 4 mentions a drawback of the step taken in 2, right? Sentence 2 tells you that these dangers were recognized and people tried to look for a solution to this problem, and 4 tells you the drawbacks or the loopholes in the solutions. So that way the best answer is 1, 3, 2, 4. I hope it is clear. Yes. Next question is this, right? So look for the odd sentence. What is the odd sentence? Let's see. For this, again, you'll have to read the sentences, and as I was telling you, when you find the odd sentence, it is not necessary that you find the correct sequence of the remaining 3. You just have to find, okay, do the 3 sentences which are left, right, which are not the answer, do they have some connection among them? Whatever is left should be the answer. Right. If you've read it, we will discuss it. Take some time to read it, of course. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I hope all of you have read it. Now, if you notice, there is also a connection that I see. Elaine Showalter's critique of the literary curriculum is exemplary of this work. This work is something which can come right after 5, right? Right after, sorry, right, it can come after 5, it can come, even 4 can come after 5. The documentation of this realization was one of the earliest tasks undertaken by feminist critics, right? So what is this realization? The realization that, right, the activity of reading begins with the realization that literary canon is androcentric, meaning it is based on man, right? Man is given as the point of reference. It is man are, they have an advantage. They are, they are the androcentric, means centered around men. So this realization is what you find in 4, right? So even after 4, you can even think of writing 2, right? So 5, 4, 2 you can think of. And if you look at it, 1 is something which also speaks about, the whole point. In fact, it can be there at the beginning, right? So this is a rough, sequence. Though this sequencing is not required, all of us know that it is about how feminist, theory started, how feminist theory, uh, you know, uh, in uh, initially realized the concept that, uh, you know the literary canon or literary literature as such, rules in literature are all based on men, and reading, you know any kind of literature should make you aware of this, right? So it's almost like you know the concept of feminism, questioning the canons or the existing paradigms of literature and reading it, right? And if you look at it, sentence 3 is a very neutral sentence. It structures the reading experiences differently. Differently does not mean one is placed at a higher political power than the others. Differently can mean all of them are different, but all of them share the same status. Here, it is not the case. What is happening here is men are always at the center and they are the point of reference, and women are at the fringe. So that way, the best answer is 3. Clear, everybody? I hope so. Let's look at the next. This is a summary. You have the answer options. Will take 1 minute to read. And by the way, when you approach, summary, what we have to do is we have to focus on what option best, summarizes the theme and the scope. What option contains the most of the points which are given in this passage, where the focus is on the right part, and of course, you should not introduce any opposite or alien ideas. Let's see. And of course, it will help if you eliminate the answer options to a great extent. Let's see. Okay, I hope you're reading it. What should be the answer? I hope all of you are reading it. Okay, let's eliminate. If you look at one, biologists have started questioning psychologists' view of intelligence as a measurable, immutable characteristic of an individual. It does not cover the last part, right? The last part where he says, where he mentions the validity of the measures used to estimate heritability of a trait in humans. So this heritability is also connected to IQ, right? So individuals are born more or less intelligence potential. This potential is influenced by heredity and difficult to alter. So option 1 does not address the issue of something, of the fact that IQ is also influenced by heredity. It is not just that you are born with it, right? So one does not cover a very important part. So read on and see the view that and the ways in which, now into the ways in which it is inherited. Biologists do not question the ways. Biologists question the very fact that they are inherited. So they say that intelligence is not a single entity and it may not be inherited. So what is questioned is not the way. In fact, when you question only the way, you might accept that it is inheritable, but biologists in the paragraph are questioning the very heritability of this concept. So 2 is also wrong. If you look at 3 is the best answer. Look at 4. Biologists have that individuals are born with more or less intelligence potential. Again, misses out this, misses out the fact that it is also influenced by heredity and difficult to alter. So the best answer is 3. I hope all of you got the point. This was the 25th question. This is the last question. So what is the summary for this? Let's see. this paragraph is important, because if you notice, a big chunk of the paragraph is devoted to an example. The example is that taken from a movie where, you know, from a television series like CSI, where by supposedly using forensic phonetics, right, a person, you narrow down the list of suspects, right. It's an example. The whole point, it's an example to prove the whole point. The whole point is something which comes later on here, right. This sequence sums up a good impression about which has led to errors in real life justice. Indeed, that movie scene, it exemplifies the so-called CSI effect. What is the CSI effect? The phenomenon in which judges hold unrealistic expectations. So it is when judges, right, they depend too much on forensic science, right. So depending the justice system, depending too much on forensic science is the main point. Whatever was given earlier is only an example to establish the point. So when we summarize, we should not focus only on the example, we should focus more on the main point. I hope everybody understands this, right. Let's see. Voice recognition has been used to identify criminals in real life also. It is not a summary, it is only a conclusion. It is true, it is given in the past. It has been used in real life also, but does it address the fact that there is the justice system, it becomes unrealistically expectant of the capabilities of forensic science. So this is something which is not enough to, right. 2 is not the summary, it is something which is correct as per the passage, but not the summary. What about 3? Although voice recognition is often presented as evidence in legal cases, its scientific basis can be now. Voice recognition is not the main point. The main point is the use of forensics, right. And because of depiction of forensic phonetics, right, in movies, because of this, in the justice system, judges depend a lot, sometimes unrealistically, on the capabilities of forensic science as a whole. So even 3 can be eliminated. If you look at 4, again, undue focus is only on voice recognition, right. If you look at it that way, the best answer is 1. So movies and televisions have led to the belief that forensic politics and legal investigation is robust and foolproof. This is what we mean by the unrealistic expectation. So some focus should be given on this unrealistic expectation. So it is like the paragraph is about something that is depicted in movies and serials, in television series, and how it reflects in real life. So that is best captured only in 1. So with that, we come to the end of the session. We have discussed each and every question of slot 1, right. And as you can see, if you subscribe to our channel and if you stay tuned, you will be definitely able to see the discussions of the remaining of the other slots which are in the schedule is given here, right. 10th, the time will be released very soon. You will get to know it very easily, right. You will know this if you stay tuned and if you subscribe to our channel. And the playlist is there in the description. You can easily click on it later on and watch the series again and again, right. So that way, and you can join a Telegram group to stay connected. You can get all our doubts clarified there. So some details about about exams which are yet to come. So this is to remind you, right, of the of the task that is yet to be done. And there are some important courses which you can still think of attending if you want to increase your chances, if you want to take your preparation to the next level. For example, other exams you can still think of preparing, right. There would be courses which are there available in GradeUp. There is a course which will enable you to answer, to tackle decision making in ZAT 2021. There's a course for GK and a current affairs. There will be a special course for GDPI and writing assessment. And CAT 2021, there's a comprehensive course. It will be, this is to prepare you for CAT 2021. The guidance will be provided by faculty who themselves have scored more than 99 percentile in their respective subjects, right. And you can expect complete conceptual clarity. There will be a day-wise study plan. The entire syllabus will be covered, and there will be live classes and quizzes. And needless to say, last but not the least, you will also be guided about this you will be also guided when it comes to the second round of discussion, group discussion, writing assessment test, and personal interview, right? So with that, we end the session here. You can see the faculty, all of them are equally well versed in their own fields, right? And you can see all the faculty here. So with that, we come to the end of the session, and before ending the session, I would like to thank Casablanca for your comments, right? It's a good thing that you have experienced in your childhood, you have experienced probably not, I'm not really sure of, okay, you've missed you have actually spent your childhood in a different part of the country. That actually adds to experience, and it is a good thing that you cherish those memories, right? So with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you everybody, and stay tuned for the other sessions. I hope you remember it, and if you're already subscribed to this, you will be aware of the timings also. So that's it everybody. Thank you and have a nice day. I'll see you again. In fact, this is not this is the end of slot 1. The series of discussions on of CAT 2020, various slots will continue till tomorrow. So that's it everybody. Thank you.